Our next guest here on the Center Ring is a returning guest. He's been on the show before. We don't get a lot of returning guests for whatever reason. Certainly not us, though. He is the former coach of Team Liquid. He coached the team during the legendary Columbus Major run. You will now find him owning a team, the Pittsburgh Knights, hanging out with Pittsburgh Steelers and Penguins and who knows what else. I am dying to find out how this happened. Welcome to the Center Ring, James O'Connor. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I feel like I'm a marathon runner, and I'm a couple miles in, so I'm ready to go. I'm good. So yeah, the Team Liquid thing was great. It was an awesome time. I I idolized my time that I spent with the guys. So I think the world of them. I'm really excited for what they did, what they're continuing to do. Really excited to see Elise and Nitro. Adren just came into town. We went out to dinner, so we stay in touch.
Well, that was
Is
one of
it pretty?
that was one of my questions. Is do you still stay in touch with the guys?
Nitro, I still kind of back and forth chat with him occasionally. I saw him at one of the times I think he won like a really big tournament. I think it was in Chicago. I went up and said hi to him, and he was really happy to see me. That was cool. Elise hates my guts I think so because Um, I think it's two reasons. Number one, he doesn't want to credit any of the growth that he had from me, probably, and I don't blame him because I would hold it over his head. And two, I still stay in touch with the Dren. I consider him a close friend, and he's from Pittsburgh, so
Oh,
we stay in touch. But
And
congrats, all jokes aside, congrats to all of them, and specifically Elige for being one of the best players in the world. Um, it's just something. It's the same drive I have for what I'm doing now.
it's kind of crazy to think that you were the coach. What it was in 15 and 16, so you were there for a little less than a year. But to still see some of those names on that team, it's quite unique in esports to have two or three names that are familiar from 3 years ago on a team. Let alone like now we're looking at 5 years in this case, and so I mean, did you at the time when you were coaching these guys see this in their future? I mean, is this what y'all envisioned at that time?
I've taken so many young players and sought out talent and molded it that it doesn't surprise me. And some of the notes that I gave them and something I actually gave to AJ, our star Rocket League player today. I told him that when you're on a team, you manufacture teamwork. When you talk to you get on a new team with players, even no matter how good they are, you say, "Hey, I'm going to go here. I'm going to flash for you. I'm going to do this," and you just constantly on the fly spend so much energy manufacturing teamwork when you play that if you just cut that out and play with the same amount of people for a while, you end up stop talking so much. And so you have to have a giant talking arch and communication arch to develop all kinds of strategies and synergy. Then it should dip down, and then it really then starts coming back up to where you're only focusing on the opponent. So that's what they're really good at now. And when you play with a group for as long as they have, you really get to just focus on the opponent rather than trying to work through that. So once you get in that special place, you don't want to change teammates. It's so much work. You realize you can't even play with anyone else because you're almost so isolated because nobody understands your likes, how you think about the game, what you need to be successful, and then it becomes you get past that arc and you can really do some special things with it.
I have to assume too, like you get that judgment out, right? Like when you're teammates for so long and you would know more than anyone, is that those little ticks, like when you're playing with a new player and they screw up, maybe they feel a little bit more pressure, things like this. This time around, Nitro has a bad day or whatever. Elite is like, don't worry about it. Like I know you're good for it.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, and also just It's just the level of ability that you get to focus on your own skill, because you're actually able to focus now, because so much of that is you really hit another threshold of skill once you get past the manufacturing teamwork,
Yeah.
because you're just focused on it's so ingrained. You're not doing two things at one time, so you're really just focused on your skill, rather than, because all the nuances are built into your subconscious. So, but it's good for them. So I'm really excited for them. I stay in touch. I try to watch. I'm so busy at work, I barely get any esports content. So, do you guys remember Garrett by any chance? Bambro, GRT. He was a coach of Rogue.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
was a coach of
Yeah.
Splice. So I adopted him, and he's in Pittsburgh working, and so he's managing all operations as far as gaming goes for the Knights.
Well, that's pretty
So
exciting, man. So, and I'll get into the Knights here in a second because I'm fascinated by that story, just knowing you personally. And then it was like one day I opened up Twitter and it was like, James O'Connor, owner of the Pittsburgh Knights. Like, how'd this happen?
yeah,
One last question about Liquid, and then they're dead to
sure.
us.
No, they're great. No, I want to be friends with Victor and Steve. I want to be partners with them in a league. So I won't say a bad word about them. But go
I
ahead.
mean, it's hard to though. I mean, Liquid's a bunch of good guys, NA, everything like that. When you
Yeah.
coached Adren, could you see coaching in his future? I mean, did he reach out to you when he started coaching the team and said, tips or anything like that?
Um. So I was at his house when he signed his contract.
Oh,
So I reviewed it with him and just talked to him about it, and I gave him some tips before he went off. Yeah, I wanted him to be successful. I wanted those guys to be successful. I don't know that I contributed anything. I just I told him to watch out what to watch out for, and because he's a pretty laid back guy, so I told him that he would have to be possibly a little bit more assertive, and I gave him some parameters of his job, saying like, I mean, it's not just about the strategies. It's just, don't let them relegate you to just being some guy who does all the work and does smokes and stuff like that. I mean, let's be clear. He's a world champion himself. I mean,
right.
he won like 10. He's one of the no, granted it's Source, okay. So, but he's one of the most accomplished players ever in North America. So, far more accomplished than I ever did. So, as far as actually playing, when he got a bad rap. That's why I always beat up Thorin. When he was playing, he was puppeteering, and a lot of his success early in the time, when he was playing Source, I think he had some insanely skilled players like AZK, and Volcano and them on his team. So he didn't. I don't think he had to puppeteer as much. But when I came on that team early on, and he was playing, he was completely overwhelmed with the inexperience of the crew. So no, I think I just tried to give him that it's just about as much managing their personalities and people. That's what I said.
And just coming back from when you were a coach, I mean, obviously, you had Simple on the team, and I mean that right there is managing personality, right? Especially because that was a young Simple at the time. So
Yeah, I liken that whole roster to me being like a chef that was sitting on a boiling pot of water with angry, like, lobsters underneath, and I was just holding it down for as long as I possibly could until it exploded. Like that's my vision of what was happening, and that's why I think Elige was so angry, because I subjected him to such terrible environment of winning, but yet um, crazy Russian, like, Ukrainianness, which equates to boiling water.
Well, like Tim said, you had them at a stage in their career where they were all young, not just Simple, right? Simple was still known as that
Yeah,
immature player, and all these guys were finding themselves, and obviously you contributed enough to say, look where they're all at now. I mean, it really is quite fascinating to see how this team is grown and just matured over time, and now considered number 2 in the world, and have held that ranking, including number 1, with still a lot of the players that you
yeah.
were
They
around. So
they were blessed to have, first to get through at such a young age through the spurt of like where I helped get them as the youngest team in the major twice basically, and then quickly through that to be able to break through to understand what they could actually accomplish at such a young age really kind of, half of the goal when you make some of those wins is, wow, I can really play at this level. I can really do this. And once you gain that, that you shatter that ceiling, once that happens, and then you get an amazing coach. He had a couple good ones. Specifically, Zeus really helped them, and I think he shared some of the. I know the philosophies, some of them that he shared in a different counterpoint. They were really shaped by that, and then having a Dren, I think, really just helped accelerate. And he's such a cool guy. He's just so nice. You just want to be around him. So someday when I hope he retires, he'll come because he's from Pittsburgh and his wife still lives here. I want to adopt him to the Knights. So
That's awesome.
hopefully we can give him a home.
So after Liquid, you then went on, if I'm not mistaken, to be co-owner of Renegades.
Yeah, that's what happened. So what happened? Jonas messaged me. He DM'd me after the Columbus Major, almost right after, and I said, "What, you want to get a Counter-Strike?" And he said, "Yeah, I like the game." And I said, "I think I know an opportunity where you could purchase a brand and rather than remake it from scratch, because that's a pain in the neck." And I told him to buy Renegades, and we did. So I helped them do that, and I worked on the back end for a year. There were some issues with the collective bargaining agreement and the vision that I had. I mean, not too shortly after, Liquid got investment from Peter Guber and the Golden State Warriors owner and Washington Wizards Ted Leonsis, and I'm like, how are we going to compete with that if Jonas, because of an active basketball player, it's kind of really it kind of hurts the ability for him to get certain investment. And this is very assertive to say publicly, but I'll just explain. If you have owners that own a significant portion of a business, but they're not actively contributing with it past capital, then it leaves a very little, equity left over for people that are going to drive the business. And so it's really top heavy. And I didn't think it was going to be a successful model. I still don't. And I thought we needed to switch it up and I needed to move on. So I did. And I wanted to do what I've always done, which is create. I was trying to see about was promoting our Rocket League skins. So we'll see.
We'll
Always
get
working.
into him in a moment. We'll get into him.
Always working.
So the goal was.
Can you tell Wiz TCR says hi?
No, but that's his manager. They're very supportive.
Just get him on the
of what
phone.
we're trying
Get
to
him on
do.
the phone.
No.
Bring him on the line. In fact, get him on the line.
So where was I? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Got distracted by Tim.
Renegades, and then you went on to do something that you always dreamed of, or always wanted to do.
Oh yeah. So I mean, the goal was to do what I've always done. I've always owned a team. I've owned a team since like 2001. So I always had a team in North America, give or take. Playing under somebody else's brand for a little bit as a pro player. And I was here long before. As far as actually team owners are concerned, like real people that were here and at the time I was here, the only person that I truly recognize and respect from old is Jason Lake. And I was in the scene about 2.5 years before him. So as far as I'm concerned, I've been here the longest. I got but if you want to take it, I was out 3 years. And so you have to respect, the market. And the market says that if League of Legends comes in and says that they're going to subsidize a game and do game developer subsidies and grow an ecosystem, and they've got a great bunch of owners, and that game blows up and takes over the world, then those are the right people in the right time to be the teams of the Cloud9s and Team Liquid with Steve and Reggie at TSM. Those are the kings. And so even though I believe that Counter-Strike founded North American esports, and I think that Counter-Strike will still have a main stage in that once this B-site and the other thing gets sorted out with ESL. But no, yeah, I wanted to reclaim a position I've always had. I used to manage Invite Scrim, which was the place that was the political power that be, where I helped organize and manage as I was appointed to do that. It's kind of like ownership of Discord, of like pro invite people. So I've always been behind the scenes doing, hard work for the community to try to make sure, and I've always been in the center of it, trying to just be a good servant of it. So cue me coming back and being totally insecure in 2016 and rubbing the powers now that be, some of the people that became in power, and took that over. I didn't respect that, and I pushed back on that, and that's where it started some friction. So I've just been trying to be quiet. I've been trying to build the organization. So I started a company, and I said, how do I compete now? This is so far, this isn't me. How do I start over and become a pro player, but in business? And basically all the fundamentals of everything I taught Team Liquid players and everything I've ever taught before, I just applied to myself. And I said, how do I become an entrepreneur like I've always been, but for real now? How do I create an operating agreement? How do I get the Twitter and the Facebook verified? What the hell are we going to name this thing? What's the logo? Okay, now, what's our first sponsor? I got Totino's. What am I going to get? What game are we going to be in? It's got to be an emerging one that we can ride and develop a community in, which was PUBG. And then we had a minimum viable product of our team going to the World Finals and top 5 in the world. And how do you cut through that market when people are trying to poach your players, because you're small and you're picking out talent. And then how
that's a huge issue with any growing org in esports is poaching players. We've talked about it a lot on the show, where it's just getting through that wave had to been. It's almost got to be like you're just up at night, like we got top 5 in that tournament. It's badass, and then it's just creeping in the back.
Survival
of your mind.
of the fittest. It's a tough one. That's all I can tell you. We had great lawyers and we're smart, and I think honestly, I've been in esports so long that I'm very clear with what I tell anyone, whether it be if I do something, if I say I will do something, except for when I tell you I'll be on a podcast and I forget about it. Okay. Sorry.
I wasn't gonna bring it up. I wasn't gonna bring it up.
Short of that, if I tell you I will do something, I will do it, and I will bend myself over. I will kill myself to get it done. I will work my ass off to get it done. So I think that resonates with players, and I don't tell them anything that I'm not going to do. I'm not a snake oil salesman that tells you and blows smoke up your ass and tells you everything's going to be great, and then I just try to tell it to them straight. I'll tell, and I think that garners respect, and I think that's helped me through this. And so anyway, so the goal was how do I create an ownership group that is respectful of our region and that can help us go and compete globally for game developer partnerships. It makes us attractive to game developers. And so then that was the goal, was how do I get the Pirates and the Steelers to partner, and the Penguins. And so that was the goal.
What's the starting point there for something like that's such a big vision you had, right? Like this is not like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm trying to get the local pizza shop to support us and like get jerseys for us. Like you went from
Totinos to
to like,
Super
I
Bowl
mean, the
champions.
level that you're still going at and you were able to accomplish is really quite fascinating. Like I think that's a story in itself. And how does somebody like yourself, obviously you have connections in the scene, you've been in the scene for a long time, but there's a difference between the esports scene and the traditional sports scene. So how do you approach somebody like the Penguins or the Steelers? It's just fascinating to me.
Um, Let me think how I did this. Give me a moment.
Slid into the DMs on Insta and like see if they hit you back. Like
No, one of the things I learned in my MBA class is that star performers are their networks. And so basically understanding the network of the city of Pittsburgh. When I exited esports, I worked really hard. I got my MBA. And I think it's important. I think that if I had not left esports, I would not have had the wherewithal and the business understanding to be connected. So what I did was I quit Counter Strike and my team became Cloud9. Do you guys know that?
no.
I actually didn't know that.
I won the first season of CSGO and it was in the beta for ESEA. And we beat Swag's team and I quit. And it was actually because we had to pay our way to go to PAX. And I was like,
Sounds about right for back then.
I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I got to grow up. I'm too old. This is not a real thing. I am done. So I ended up
I think people our age have all been there.
so I ended up going and getting my MBA and going into economic and business development. And so I worked at the Center for Economic Development in San Francisco, which is inside the Chamber of Commerce. I got a fellowship through a veterans program and called the Mission Continues, which is veterans that come back and do community service and they serve in their country again and they get connected. And I really liked the program. It was the only thing that I wanted to be identified with from the Marine Corps. And I used it to get a cool fellowship inside this thing and get access to opportunity. And I did a good job. And they asked me, they said I did well in the program. Would you like to help us think about running a platoon? And I didn't have a job at the time because I literally had just graduated and did an internship. So I was kind of, bouncing from internship to internship after you finish something and trying to change my life a little bit post esports. And I ended up getting into leading this platoon in Pittsburgh, and I worked with a foundation, and I grew it from it was my new Counter-Strike team, and I grew it from 3 people to over 300 people, and we did community service projects, and we really worked on rehabbing homes for families. It's kind of like Habitat for Humanity, but veterans coming there and doing community service, and then veterans that would come back who just hadn't met anybody would come to the service project and work with for-profit companies that maybe want to hire them. So it was a really cool mission. And then I learned about innovation and creativity there because I hit failure. I only stayed with 7 people for volunteers and people that were involved in this thing. And for a long time until I started being more selfless. And what I did was I got other people involved with representing themselves involved in the mission. So it was like 30 guys, men and women with veterans with blue t-shirts, and then a ton of people around us who were there coming around to serve their causes, but in a larger representation to the mission. So I started to see success when I started to be strong, be a center of a leadership, but really kind of let go of some of the reins of that I have to own everything and I have to do this by myself, and the ego within that it'll explain what I'm doing with the Knights now. And so anyway, I got a job in economic and business development for the county executive's business development team, and which is basically the guy who runs the county. He's an elected official.
Right.
And so I got to learn about politics. I got to learn about the city. And the goal why I did that was to understand how a city works. How does the for-profit and the business community work with the nonprofit community, and how does the government support business and grants and loans? And the whole time I was thinking, I'm like, how do I build an esports stadium someday? Like, how do I get money and subsidies to build an esports stadium? Like, I just stared at this ground outside this window for 3 years, like someday I'm gonna come back into esports and I'm gonna build a stadium. Like, I don't
Back then,
I
that
thought,
was like insane, right? Like a
yeah,
dedicated
yeah,
esports
just a
stadium.
weird dream, a guy who gave up on something. And I credit my wife, who didn't know me when I played in esports at all, met all my pro esports friends at my wedding. And that, the stories that get told there and stuff. And so she kind of just, she knew about it. And then she was the one who pushed me to go back in to coach Team Liquid. And she had no clue what she was in for.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't understand. Like, you're asking me to go back in, but you don't know what that means. Like,
Just a
you don't know
couple
what it
hours
means
a
to
night to
me.
play video
don't know what
games
it's
with
gonna
his
do.
friends.
I got out. Don't do this to me, and then, like, I'm a monster. Keep me away from this. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then she never saw me, and we had 2 kids, and so I was just like in the basement down here coaching and like flying all over Cluj-Napoca, Romania. But anyway, back on track. I created. I was working in accounting, and I started to learn about business and develop business. So I just really started to study what I need to do to create the foundation of the business. I got the former general counsel of the Pirates to be our lawyer, and I just went through every piece of it. So all my father-in-law kept saying was brick by brick. Every day, I just, like, nonstop, just something. And so how do you get from where we were? I solicited them. I was in the newspaper saying that, I mean, I was a little crazy. I was in the newspaper saying that I was going to bring 3 sports teams together to invest in game developer partnerships, to bring major tournaments to the city, and to build a company in the city. I went straight political.
You put the feelers out there, and
You just
words
gotta
trickle
you just
through.
gotta put it out there into the world. You just gotta you gotta ask for what you want. And what I wanted desperately was, I wanted a partnership with the Steelers, because they're best in class, from character to stoicism, just how they think and act. And the employees that they have are all amazing. And so it is every bit of a first class organization, and we're so blessed we get to be in their offices. So all the staff are in there, and we're learning every day. They invested, and they provided a sponsorship agreement, which is unheard of, where we get to learn from all of their staff, from everything. So I've just adopted, for the greater part of a year in the office, I've just gone to school. I've basically gone to, like, sports Harvard, and I'm just sitting there learning everything. And I could go on, but I'm just so proud of the team and what they've endured and learned and just persevered through, just drive and focus to get stuff done, to build a company, to build the foundation of it. So yeah, and the ownership group that we put together, some of it's not public yet, but we some of it's not public yet, but there's more good stuff. That's what I can say. I went ham. Okay. So
Well, I mean,
some of it
and
go
you
ahead,
guys
sorry.
have, obviously teams in Smite. You mentioned PUBG. Is it PUBG Mobile now is your team? Do you have a standard PUBG team anymore?
Yeah, so when you look at my company, you should actually realize the state of esports in the market,
Right.
because I'm going to match the market. And what I mean by that is, my goal is to do events and teams, and so you got to think of the life cycle. I'm getting up some trade secrets here, so hopefully nobody watches your podcast. Okay.
No one does. No one. I can promise you, no one.
Not my mom, but
I'm just talking to you two then. Okay. Well, So if you want to think about the life cycle of game developers, they are creating a game, they launch it, they want you to buy it or play it, and then they want you to buy the in-game items. And then they want to have online tournaments and in-person live tournaments. And then they want to have you manage teams in their game, or they want to give away prize money. And then if it's more formal, if it's a more popular game, they want to support the teams to have teams in their leagues, and so the question is, how does that make sense? How does that make business sense for an esports team? Is there a real business there? And so you have to kind of go through all of that and say, if you look at the music industry, if I wanted to like cut a record and have somebody believe in me and produce and publish my record out there, at least before, you have to pay for studio time. You have to, and if you don't have money to pay for studio time, then you've got to ask a record label or a group, maybe a smaller record label, to pay for that studio time for you to get access to that and maybe help you coach and mentor you so that you can get access. And if you're a star, well, they tell you you got to pay back some of that studio time before so they get their money back,
Right.
because they're invested in everything they have, and then they want a piece of it going forward. Well, if you think about esports, if you got a kid with 2 followers, um, and he becomes super famous, and you helped him get there, he doesn't pay you anything. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
You pay,
Right.
he wants you to pay him. But what if you're supplying him a jersey and a t-shirt and headset and gear and all this stuff and maybe travel? It doesn't make business sense to do that if you're not getting anything out of it. Like this, it's a business. It's a for-profit business. It's not a muse. We're not here just to help gamers out. It's a business. So how do you make a business out of that? And I don't think many people. I think they're taking a lot of VC money and taking that money and saying, "I've got it. I understand business. I've got it," and then they're sitting here just subsidizing game developers and their marketing. And so what we're doing is, if you look at the games that we're in, um, some of the games, what you should understand is less popular games subsidize game developers because they want to invest in their game.
Right.
So think about the way League of Legends started. You invested in the game because they gave a $250,000 stipend, and that paid for some of the players, some of the staff, because they wanted you to invest in their game to grow it. And then if you make your business alongside them with merchandise sales and sponsorship sales and potentially events, if you do that, or more content and media where you're selling against sponsors off of that, or media rights deals if Twitch is signing your players, or Mixer or any of that other stuff, if they want that esports pro scene on their platforms. And the point is that it's got to make business sense for you to subsidize players' livelihoods, and it will only make sense if the player has a big following or they're on engaging with a platform, because they're literally just influencers at
Right.
that point,
Yeah.
because the game developer. So are you going to take what do you hear on standard prize money? It's 80-20. You know what I'm saying? Like 20 to the teams. So I'm supposed to pay a salary, and then I'm supposed to get 20% of the gambling money that you may or may not get. And then
And
let
so
me tell you what
you're just so I understand
Good.
then, you're paying so the 80% is just the prize money. That's not part of their
Yeah.
salary, correct?
I mean, we're talking about standards here.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just-
I mean, just a blanket statement, right? So are
Yeah.
you then, as an org, paying them their salary with also that 20%?
Well, no, we would get, hypothetically, the standard, like, generic
Yeah,
thing
just
is
generic, just
players get a salary. The Knights would get 20% of the prize money.
okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the question is, we're losing money. So how are we making that back? Do you understand?
Yep.
Sponsors or merch sales or
Yeah.
other things. So the question is, why are we subsidizing player salaries if it doesn't make business sense? So some of the game developers might be paying, it's a real question. So right now, Fortnite players, it's really about brands and sponsors, or it's just about bad business, honestly. No joke.
You see that in Counter-Strike, right? They were just talking about how Counter-Strike teams like Cloud9 is losing $1 million plus a year on their Counter-Strike team.
I'm halfway through the Thorin video with Dan Fighton.
Oh yeah. They dive into
but
quite a bit.
let's actually really talk about this. Why do you think I'm not in Counter-Strike right now?
No,
I'm looking. I'm legit looking to consider to be part of something that's going to be happening soon. Like just whatever's going to be happening for Counter-Strike, I'm interested. But let me just tell you, let's look at this. Why are none of the teams working together truly collectively? If you look at the PEA teams from 2016, none of them are in the same games.
Yeah.
Like they're all in random games together.
Yeah.
Why are they not collectively working with game developers to help each other? And why aren't the teams helping each other? It's just small factions of teams kind of against it. So I'm hoping, in the same way that I managed Invite Scrim, I'm looking for the teams to work together in a collective unit to help each other, to make like an overall league. And so here's what's happening right now in front of our eyes, specifically with Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
The teams are saying, why do we need the tournament organizers? Because if you think about how the Steelers put on events, they hire event companies to put on the events. They subcontract the events. The contractor that we would use is actually trying to get a hold of them for something, and they're like, hold on, we're working on the NFL or the Super Bowl. So they're working on events, and it's a subcontractor. The event organizer doesn't own the league. The teams own the league. The team owners and the association own the league.
Right.
And right now, there's a faction war between the players in 2016. The orgs tried to get the players to create a team-owned league.
Yeah.
The team. So what's happening right now is you have the game developer, who right now in Valve is agnostic, and then you have because it's beautiful because they get to just subsidize and continue to grow, but they don't have to invest an insane amount. They just need to keep it going. So
they're not running tournaments, and they're not. I mean, they're doing just
well, they're giving. They're saying they're giving that access to other people to make revenue alongside them, and they're staying very focused on what they do. And I understand it. And then then you have the tournament organizers and the teams. Okay, what's happening right now is they're fighting because they're trying to shift places. The tournament the teams are trying to subcontract out to the tournament organizers to be subservient to them and to own a piece of it, and for it to make economic sense for all. Because the problem is the tournament organizers' goal is to be global and agnostic, meaning they don't care about a game, and they don't care specifically one community over another. It's just whatever makes the most business sense.
Right. Whatever has the more viewers, and
which is okay, but also, why invest in one area over another when I have to grow globally? Because if I don't, I'm looking for a mass global market share for sponsorship dollars when I go to Visa and they give me a ton of money. So they don't see value in regionalizing to just a Europe or just a North America.
Right.
And so they're never they don't have a vested interest in focusing and localizing and just zeroing in. And I think, and it concerns me when you see, what just happened with ESL, how, speaking on a turn here, but they wouldn't have the teams. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That shows you the economics of it, really. It only made business sense for them to really zone in and focus on this, so anyway, and as they regrow. So it's a really question. Am I going to get ownership? In an ESL league, or am I going to get ownership in this B-site thing or the other groups? The question is, how do I raise money against it? Because just the money that people have right now, it's not going to subsidize the growth of this. You're going to have to go out and you're going to go to investors, and they're going to say, well, what do you own? What do you actually have a piece of?
Right.
Do you own the game? For Counter-Strike? No.
Yeah.
Do you own a spot in a league? No. They're giving me money though. Well, then why would I give you money? Because you don't really own anything. Do you know what I'm saying?
How are
Like,
we gonna turn around and make money off of this? You don't own any of the
yeah,
tournaments. You're not
it
the
just
one
there's
setting
no
up
franchise
venues.
value. There's
Yeah.
no franchise value in esports teams, and specifically if you look at the NFL, the money is in the franchise value, the ownership of the thing, the finite. There's only a certain amount of them. So I do believe in franchising from the ability to raise capital, because you're not going to be profitable in this stuff early on. You just won't.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of questions that I have to answer, and I have to answer to a board, and we have to figure it out. So I'm working through all of it, all opportunities.
So, give me a short version of this question then.
Okay.
Is that part of the reason then why you threw Pittsburgh in your org's name, is to get that kind of the localizations fan base? Or I'm always curious on why you chose Pittsburgh and not just Knights eSports or something like that.
Well, I'm from Pittsburgh, so I love my city, and I saw Manchester United as one of the best sports teams in the world, and they have their name and their
Touche. That's a
So
that's
so
a
I
pretty
just thought,
good
like,
point. Okay.
honestly, I thought, like, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like,
This is the
let's.
business school and him talking, Tim. That was
Yeah, no, now you make my
home
question
run
look
right
really
there.
stupid.
There's
Like,
no
now I
argument
feel
on
kind
that.
of dumb. Like, I was like, oh, is that going to hurt it? But no, you're absolutely right, I guess.
Well, people ask, and and it can be confusing at times, but I don't care. I'm just gonna push through it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
I'm gonna sway this conversation here because there's some stuff that I do want to get a chance to talk about before we have to go here. Is your Rocket League team?
Yeah.
The Rocket League team has shown so much success recently. Last season was their first season in RLCS, second currently NA, top 6 in Worlds, and now there's also the new
Five. Wasn't it 5? 5 and 6, 5, 6.
5, 6. Yeah, so we'll 5, 6 in Worlds.
5.
And now there is the news that the new skins are coming out, and I gotta say, we are impressed over here. But how exciting has it been to have a team that's competing at such a high level and considered one of the top esports currently? I mean, I know it's fought its way up there, I feel like, over time, and now you see Rocket League on the main stage with all these other top tier games, and I think we consider it definitely a tier 1 esport.
So we love the game. We love when you think about brands and sponsors. Again, conservative. What financially, what would sponsors feel comfortable attaching themselves to? And so when we break down games, we think of the rating of the game is one of the things we think of. Is it playable for all? Is this going to be how is a bank going to think about this? Think about a 60-year-old man who doesn't understand, or woman who doesn't understand, what esports is barely, and he's got to make a financial decision on partnering with something.
And you described we've often with Counter-Strike, right? I think that's a tough sell for a lot of people where you're like, well, so what's Counter-Strike? So you play as a terrorist, and then your objective is to blow up
or kill everyone.
Yeah, or kill the SWAT team. It's like,
yes.
No, I'm okay.
Yeah. We have some room to grow in the game that I love. Yes. But there are some harder sponsors like military and all that stuff. But yeah, so Rocket League is, it's wildly popular. The parents are involved. Reddle's dad is a meme. Like they go everywhere with the team. I just got to spend today with AJ and talk to him about the team today. He's in our office. He moved to Pittsburgh for a little bit. He had like 90 ping in Oregon, but apparently the servers are more East Coast, so he's super excited because he's like 15 ping. So we'll see what he can do. And so they're just here, and the game's a great esport as far as, I mean, it's got some great viewership. It's like 40K, 50K on matches.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's matching what CDL is doing currently. That's what CDL's performance was for the first week of franchising on YouTube for them. Was they were averaging around 50K. I know they peaked closer to 100 at times, but that's a fantastic number to have for regular season, and just you see the popularity in Rocket League, right? Like it just appeals to the masses, similar to Fortnite in that sense. where it's kind of a common game where anybody can get their hands on and feel like they're having a good time. Where Counter-Strike and some of these other games, Overwatch, Call of Duty, very different to just like jump in and try and play. I feel like you can appeal to the masses with this type of game.
Yeah, it's very friendly and it's very easy to watch. I think it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And something that one of my staff brought up, and it's really, really intelligent. If you think about, so how we break down the brand values. What is the brand value for the Knights? Do you see our logo? And then do you see the sponsor's logo and or brand name? And what is the opportunity for us to be featured in either of those? Uh, and so if you think about it, look at PUBG. Or even Fortnite. There's 16 teams. So the diversity of an hour match with 16 teams versus 2 with Rocket League is really, really subtle, and you don't know that. But there's a lot more brand awareness with a League of Legends team where it's just 1 versus 1, and the 5 players, it's your brand representing another brand. And that really was powerful for me to understand that. Thinking about PUBG or PUBG Mobile or even those games, they really, because we have this software called Zoom, and we were valuing the logos, what's on the stream, and what our logos on the stream, and the value of it to us as if we were paying for marketing.
Right.
And you rarely saw us on PUBG. Like, we did an analysis. It was one of our worst games to be a part of. And so you wouldn't think that, because they ran there was 100 games on stream, and it was a
Right.
big, amazing thing over there. But they barely featured the players.
Yeah.
And we barely got screen time unless we were, chicken dinner of the thing. So if you start analyzing that and doing the research, you start thinking really differently about
I guess that's the
games.
beauty of the skins also, right? Now you have the skins in Rocket League, so even if your players are not visible and they're just showing the game, you're still going to see Pittsburgh Knights right there on your screen. So definitely understand that. And another game I wanted to just ask you about was Apex, and kind of how that's been for you, because that would I would think, kind of out of the groupings of games that y'all are involved in, Apex to me is the most interesting, because Apex is right there on the cusp of being what I would consider tier 1, right? They're finding their way. The league is kind of starting to shape itself a little bit this year. The game is now going into its 4th season. And so what has that been like, going into a game that kind of hyperinflated right when it came out, and then saw this dive down and has now slowly started to pick its way up?
So I think the first thing to talk about is when a sports team has to talk to sponsors, the sponsors typically, it's really important to focus on that, because anybody that's listening to this, if they want a good information, I'm just going to give it to you. You think about sponsors, they say, think about a hockey game. Hi, well, I have 42 home games. I think it's 42. Okay. You've got X amount of time per period. I know that my logo is going to be seen on that side of the board on the ice, and typically, we capture that on camera for 4 minutes a game, and typically there's, I'm making this up, 1 million people watching per game. I know very clearly what's going to happen on a regular basis. It's a product that I'm buying as a marketing agent, that my brand, that brand recognition is going to drive me potentially more sales. Now the question is, and hopefully more than brand recognition, impressions, and then engaged impressions, and then potentially click through traffic. I'm putting you guys to sleep, but this is important
No,
stuff.
no.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm texting. My
Okay,
wife is
I'm
over
teasing.
here.
I'm teasing. But my point is, if I'm trying to get into the game that you just mentioned, if they announce the game and they tell me that there's a league going to happen and I get players in the game, but I don't know when the event is, how do I sell that to sponsors?
Right.
How do if the game developer isn't going to pay us a subsidy, they're only going to pay us prize money, then I've got to be the jerk that wants to take 80% of prize money instead of 20%. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because why am I going to subsidize the risk? And then, by the way, I'm not a gambler. I don't don't gamble that much.
Doesn't seem like a good thing to be when you're an esports
No,
organization owner.
and so why would I invest in a team in trying to figure out if I don't know when the events are? I don't know how much prize money I'm going to get because it's a risk. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I've got to pay travel. I've got to pay player salaries, assuming that that's the thing. Like, and I've got to pay all the hidden expenses. You know, we just launched a new chair that we own. It's not with another company. I've got to get jerseys. I've got to get apparel. I've got to do branding. I've got to do videos. I've got hard costs. And do I want to focus on that stuff? So the answer is love the game. Totally down to do that. But you know, this is really important. This is the pivot. Why wouldn't I just run events instead?
Yeah.
Let all you guys subsidize my place, my events. If you want to play that game where the game developer doesn't make sense to put on to have a team, I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to have events. And then if you want to subsidize your players coming there, great. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I am trying to be a mini local ESL. Okay.
Right.
I have an event. I don't know if you guys are bored, but come July 9th through 12th, you should come to Replay FX. I'm partnering with a good friend, business partner, who basically helped build one of the largest retro arcades in the world, and I'm going to try to turn it into a dream hack. I want Wiz to help us sell tickets there. I want him to come have his friends DJ. The Steelers are going to bring some stuff there, some Madden, and it's 4 generations of consoles and $4 million worth of event arcade and pinball equipment, and it's the world's best pinball tournament for $100,000 in prize pool. So that's where I'm trying to actually. So it's replayfx.org, July 9th through 12th. Plug in it for your mom. But the point is that I'm trying to grow esports there in our city and trying to do cool tentpole events around the city with all this equipment that I've got. Because where game developers don't want to partner with that, they'll pay to put on events. So I'm just following the revenue wherever it meets. And so I want to be in game developers that are successful, games that are popular, and I have no qualms about purchasing franchises that make sense. Whether it be tickets into leagues in Counter-Strike or whether it be other franchise leagues, we're looking at everything, and it's really about the economics of what makes business sense.
Are y'all in communication with developers prior to release of games to like kind of get an understanding of you know stuff maybe is in beta? Are those communications happening then, or is it really post launch? You see how it's going before you decide to dive in. Like for example, you know, we've talked about it on the show a couple of times. Riot's coming out with a couple of new games, including a new FPS shooter. Do you try and stay in communication with developers in that way?
The answer is yes. And 2, it's about trust because they have secret plans and they don't want everybody to know because they're all competing against each other. So there's a lot of NDAs involved, but the answer is, however we can help them, we need to, whether it be a Steelers gaming zone at Heinz Field, or we had this thing at a music venue where people tailgate at the Steelers. We ran some Madden events and stuff, just for some free play. We're going to be growing it. But we basically wanted to stay small. And this last year for me, and almost finishing, we're launching a new website, event management, event platform, ticket sales, new merch store. So let me be clear. There's only like 2 or 3 teams in esports that have their own merch. Everybody else subsidizes it signs the rights away to like different groups.
Right.
Yeah.
And
like
the
to
Steelers are one of the
designers or something like that.
The Steelers are one of the 5 teams in the NFL that do their own merch. It's the Patriots, the Packers, the Steelers, the Cowboys, and the Raiders. They buy some of the rights back from Fanatics, and they do their own stores. So we cloned the entire Steelers operation for merch, and we're just about finished. We're going to redo the front website, and we're getting rid of our current website, and then we've got a badass merchandise operation: pick, pack, and ship fulfillment center, global sales, we can pretty much do anything we want, pre-orders, all that stuff. So
Your assistant let us know that we should be giving you our sizes since you skipped us on the last interview. So we'll make sure to send that over, and we look forward to that beautiful Pittsburgh Knights merch that we'll be wearing
Yes.
on.
What's
Free marketing. There you go. There's like some free marketing for you as well.
Yes.
So this is like a win-win.
I love it. I
What,
love it. And you know what? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna ask you what percentage of your wardrobe is Pittsburgh Knights stuff. As owner, do you just get one of everything?
No, I'm pretty conservative. I have to lead by example. My wife bought this shirt, so
Oh, look at you. There you go.
yeah.
There you go.
But no, we just have to. We built the store, and I'm pretty proud of it. And so we're going to be doing a lot of campaigns. If you think about it, we're launching merch with everything. If you get bored, take a look at our Twitter. We look at the video we just announced for our chair. That took me a while to source from China and build and conceptualize. And so I'm not going to be spending too much more time on merch. We hired some people, but we got some really cool people who are going to be developing that stuff. You wouldn't be surprised. It's like 6 months to a year out. You have to order stuff actually, and like major. Like it's not. So we're going to be developing some stuff, and we're looking to do a line potentially with Wiz. And so he sold a jersey at all of his tour on his tour with a Knights logo on it.
Yeah, I've seen that. I have seen the Wiz. I thought that.
I think he tweeted it out also.
Yeah, I think you tweeted it out, and it just, I was like, I remember I texted Anuj. I was like, can you believe that? Like, Wiz Khalifa concert, and you see.
I'm just broken, man. I'm just trying to work. I'm just trying to build it. I've got a lot of responsibility on me, so I'm just trying to build something cool, for the city and for fans. So we've got a lot of partners, and hopefully we stay going on it and just keep doing it. So.
Well, like I said, I've been quietly rooting for you guys ever since, you guys. I mean, it's just crazy to think that, I've known you since MLG Columbus really is when we first met in person, and you've been on the show even way before that. And now to see where you are now, I mean, obviously your experience in the industry and everything's always been there, but it is really cool to see, like, we talk about it all the time on the show, like the eSports success stories are few and far between.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you feel like you're a success story yet, but I feel like it. So congratulations on that. I know you got tons of things coming up in the future, though.
Yeah, I do feel very blessed. I think it's I feel like I'm in a dream, and I don't want to wake up, and I just want to keep going. So I go to work excited every day. I've got amazing staff. They work incredibly hard, and credit to them. And one of the things my wife has said is that she thinks that the Knights need. So we're going to be getting more public pretty soon, and with some influencers, we're going to be recruiting and kind of getting out there to tell the Knights story in their own way. Is something for 2020, and having more fun on camera, not player focused. So that's really critical. I can tell you that standing up an entire merchandise operation and literally building an entire sponsorship operation that could be respectable to the level of an NFL team, and actually making good on promises and doing a good job, and then managing the teams and understanding the ecosystem and coming up with a really true conceptual understanding of how we're going to make a real business out of esports, and then also looking at franchises and the Counter-Strike leagues and keeping your eyes open to all opportunities and applying for game developer partnerships behind the scenes. It's so much that it's you have to get your feet under you, and I needed to understand every piece of the business before I felt comfortable where I could set it on its own, where I could get more focused and more public. So 2020, I have a goal to get more public too.
Well,
So
if there's anything we can do on that front, let us know, because obviously we have our listener base who, I know they're always loyal to TCR, and if there's anything that we can do to help, let us know. Let me before we let you go, let me get an updated liner from you, because the only liner we have from you is from
our
Team
audio
Liquid.
signature from you is this is James
Oh.
O'Connor, coach of Team Liquid. Well, we feel like it's time to replace that with the latest and greatest here. So if you don't mind, you can just state your name, obviously the org, and that you're listening to the Center Ring.
Okay. Hi, this is James O'Connor, president of the Pittsburgh. I'll start over. Sorry.
No,
A lot of pressure.
Okay. Hi, this is James O'Connor, president of the Pittsburgh Knights, and and you're listening, and I'm listening, and you're listening to the Center Ring.
Perfect.
You want to say it again? Is that
wonderful?
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay.
All right. Well, James, thank you so much for coming on. I know we could even go on for another hour, but I want to take up your whole night. You got a wife and kids to get to. We'll have to have you on again later in the year. I don't know. Are you going to DreamHack Dallas or any event?
So they've asked me. Just stay in touch, both of you. I'd love to meet you in person and hang out. I'm glad that the podcast is still going strong. I'd love to get your advice someday on what I have to do for the Knights podcast someday, and just learn from you guys on what you do. But I'm definitely going to see you around at events, and don't feel shy to to DM me or something. And if you can't get a hold of me, Caitlin, okay?
I got Caitlin on lock now.
Now we have her on lockdown, so she's in trouble now. No,
she
for sure.
Texted me 5 minutes before this and said, "You better get on there." So, thanks, guys.
Not a problem, James. Thanks, man.